Hi, everyone. I see there are more than 110 attendees over here. And I see you from your introduction, you are from coast to coast, right? So good evening, everyone. I know it's the last day before our work week starts. On top of that, we have our tax return day coming. So really appreciate all your time over here. I'll try to make sure, keep stick to the meat of the conversation. And as Avinav has already introduced, I'm just going to be spending a couple of minutes so that you got a chance to know me. I am Cheyenne. I am based out of the Bay Area. Stay here, in the middle of Peninsula. Currently, I'm working with Disney streaming. As you probably all have been exposed to, some shape, way, and form with ESPN, Disney Plus, Hulu, ABC, you name it. I work as a principal ML engineer, leading various deep learning based and GenAI based personalization project end to end. It can be applicable for commerce and also the advertisement space. Apart from my full-time role at Disney, I also work as an advisor in startup, where my contribution mainly is to kind of bring the how can we mitigate cultural bias in LLMs. Actually, as you might have seen, I have did my PhD in University of Miami, and during my PhD, I was very closely aligned with when this face recognition system first came in, right? Based on the bias of the training data, not each and every cultural and ethical individual's image was properly being recognized, right? So having the core of my, work that I have done in academia, that how we can leverage bias, that kind of also helped me to kind of, be a part of the community where we can leverage various tools to make this LLM more, not only commercially viable, but also acceptable across various culture, race, by minimizing the bias. Before my current role at Disney, I have been part of other organization, specifically in the scope of ads and marketing growth. So as I said, I'm very, fortunate to be here with you guys. And my goal is that to jump into, give you a quick walkthrough, how we started the journey and where you are and why we are now and what we are trying to achieve, right? So I'm going to be trying to kind of do some illustration as we go. If you look back in the history, right, 1960, when first the introduction of the term artificial intelligence was coined, right? Along with that, we've been introduced to the MLP, or multi-layer perceptron, when the initiation of deep learning framework, that is our building block with each and every step that you are seeing in this slide, right? However, we've been through a little bit of, few decades we call winter in AI research due to various kind of reason, starting from algorithmic implementation bottleneck, data availability, and processing power, right? Jump to 2010 and beyond, right? We have overcome all these shortcomings utilizing the trick how we can override gradient vanishing. We have started gathering plethora of terabytes, hexabyte, zettabyte of data in YouTube and various other open source libraries. And we also have our GPUs, right? And we all know the story behind NVIDIA. And all these things kicked in together and able to create this notion of our first building block. You can think about AlexNet. There are multiple other convolution neural network framework that has make it possible for our computer vision algorithm to come to the realistic use cases, right? No matter you are using iPhone or Android, think about when you are unlocking the phone by using your face, using, utilizing various kind of tools to remove the unwanted background from your images. These are all being started to be, introduced in the consumable world, starting from the notion of deep learning. Then we go to perception based AI, right? Many of you drive various self-driving car level 5, right? By utilizing image processing and utilizing various kind of lidar signal. That was the next advance that we have seen around the era of 2010 to 2018. And then come 2019 to 2022, the era of generative AI, right? We make sure that the research of natural language processing has able to break through various kind of research initiatives, and it gave us the GPT-3 and beyond, where we started leveraging these AI tools as a consumable product, right? And I'm quite sure each and every one of you, as you are here today, you are leveraging a various foundational model, maybe beyond that, right? RAG or various other framework in your day-to-day work. May it be make yourself more productive, or maybe you are building tools in your industry. And we are in that current day of the development of agentic AI, right? As of now, as we're going to be going through slide by slide, we're going to be able to realize that how agentic AI has able to change the way we are leveraging these generative AI tools in day in and day out work. And that's exactly where we're going to be spending most of the time today, talking about some examples and going through a quick demo in a Google Colab notebook workspace. So we can know that how we can leverage all these things, no matter what industry we are, how we can automate this kind of a intelligent microservice based framework where we can leverage multiple type of foundational model. If we want to fine tune it with our own individuals and organizational data to make this process more sophisticated. Not going to spend too much time in this slide. It's just kind of the textbook definition, right? What agentic AI really is, right? It's an intelligent system. Obviously, it based out of various kind of large language model I have mentioned. That's the foundation of it. And it helps us to perceive information, no matter in which modality it comes in. And specifically, given this natural language communication, first thing first that we need to do to understand the context, right? And based on the context, try to understand how we can identify the information available with us to follow the objective as per the query and dynamically able to create a solution or maybe answer that will help our query to be resolved as efficiently as possible, right? This kind of agentic AI, specifically, as I mentioned, need to be proactive, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to solve the problem from an individual's question. It obviously need to be goal oriented. That's where the contextuality comes into play. I mentioned about the word dynamic. You can think about we want this autonomous system, right? We want to make sure no matter how many large language models we are using, may it be foundational or may it be fine-tuned, we want to make sure we can autonomously connect each and every LLM and their workflow underneath. And we have to make sure we can also adapt, right? From a previous experience, for example, if this is a continuous chat session, right? How are we going to be leverage the information from the previous chat session and how we can make sure this communication would be personalized for a certain user if they are doing a continuous communication with this with this certain agentic AI framework. Okay, so now we are going into the more crux. So as I mentioned, right, like if we look at the journey of starting from 1960s, we built various machine learning algorithms to able to achieve the state of artificial intelligence. And now around 2020, we started using various generic AI workflow. No, may it be traditional ML or the generic AI or Gen AI, right? Generative AI that we mentioned. Usually, all these machine learning and AI models are very task specific, right? So each and every model have been trained for a certain task. If it is a LLM, you can think about it's a more generic task, right? But idea is very simple that we're gonna be adding a certain prompt, and based on the training being done, no matter it's a dedicated task or it's a generic task, based on the prompt, it can give some answer, right? And over time, we have seen that we are not necessarily leveraging these AI and ML models for building a single task. We want our AI system to be our personal assistant, right? And if, as you know, in our organization, we have seen that our executives have personal assistant. They help them not necessarily to respond their email or book their calendar, also help them in various other business use cases, right? And that's what the notion of agentic AI workflow comes into play. And the way we look into agentic AI workflow is not necessarily that when we are giving a prompt, we are only looking for a certain kind of response. The prompt can be, you can think about, we can have various different kind of prompt, and we are expecting various different responses, right? For a certain prompt, you can think about if it is a weekday or a weekend, obviously the response would be a little bit different, right? And that's why you can see the loop over here, right? And the loop is pretty much, you can think about it's reasoning and action, right? A lot of the time, as I mentioned, in our conventional pre-agentic AI, we used to have one type of prompt and we are trying to look for one type of solution, right? And that has changed in the notion of agentic AI. We want to make sure it can be adaptive and it can be dynamic and it can be autonomous, right? And that's what the notion of able to reason for a certain question, trying to understand the paradigm and the context is very important, right? And based on that, it should able to know what kind of goal that we are trying to achieve to have a answer. So given that, we have kind of introduced the paradigm of agentic AI, now we're going to be delving into our various industrial application. So as I mentioned, right, irrespective of what kind of industry or application you are a part of, right, may it be healthcare, may it be retail, may it be fintech, or may it be manufacturing, right? You can imagine, given our current need, any kind of a business where we have direct to consumer business, right? And first thing a business need is how can we personalize, right? Our message need to be personalized. Our if it is a therapy or if it is a for a healthcare use cases, right? If we are applying certain kind of medication or some diet, we have to make sure not one size fit all, right? So personalization, no matter it comes in retail, no matter comes in finance, right? Think about you are trying to apply for a credit. Each and every individual's profile is different, right? So personalization is a kind of a front and center of each and every business application. Efficiency, as you can imagine, we are utilizing all the tools that we can achieve from generative AI in each and every individual's day-to-day work. Why? Because we want to make our day-to-day work much more effective, right? We want to efficiently generate much more, minimizing the business complexity and maximizing the revenue, right? So at the end of the day, a lot of the task that AI is good at is not necessarily, you probably also heard this communication across various kind of forum. It's where the human is not necessarily enjoy to do some task, right? You can think about the monotonous task, right? Like for example, multiplying big numbers with a calculator. So that's where exactly we are seeing that how we can leverage these LLMs to gather this process efficiency. And obviously customer experience is one of the biggest challenge, right? No matter a organization or industry how much brand value they have, they always need to make sure they have to continue provide a better customer experience, right? May it be in store or may it be online commerce, right? How many of us go to store to buy, no matter it's electronic goods or our apparel, right? And finally, you also want to make sure how we can make this product design and development much more efficient and iteratively improve as per the demand of the industry and as a consumer, right? So as you can imagine, in across all possible business domain, no matter where you are, there is a huge opportunity for you to leverage agentic AI to build this kind of solution. And that's where exactly this project, of course, will help you to kind of get a hands-on experience. But nevertheless, let's open the chassis of the car, right? And that's where the engine sits. And as you can imagine, it might be a little bit involved, but we'll try to take one step at a time. So as you can see on the top above, it's already mentioned this kind of tool can be deployed no matter private or, as we know, there is various kind of a HIPAA law for our healthcare providers, and also for fintech there is various other laws, and various companies and organizations do not able to use the open source cloud. So obviously if you belong to one of the industry, it's not necessarily that you cannot use this tool, but you might need to use an on-premise data center, right? Or your own server framework rather than going into the cloud. But nevertheless, where you are, right? So the first thing first is that able to create a multimodal application, right? Because at the end of the day, when users are communicating with any kind of a product or service, a need, we always want to be much more flexible, right? Sometimes, we are in a hands-free mode, we are driving, we certainly prefer to use voice. And a lot of the time, if there is more informational, more, we have to go into numbers, we always go with email and various kind of typing instruction. No matter what mode of communication we are using, we have to first have very strong firewall, so that we can able to protect any vulnerable, any DDoS attack nonetheless. And once we are able to identify a user and able to understand the context of their communication, we start with understanding what kind of information we have about the user, right? And that's what the enterprise data layer comes into play. Your organization, each and every organization used various kind of data sources, right? Or we can think about data warehouse or cloud infrastructure. But irrespective of that, this is where we are able to create a agnostic, cloud agnostic enterprise data layer. And based on the user query, we're going to be able to identify and entity detection. You remember we mentioned about the contextual understanding, the paradigm. And on top of that, having all this enterprise data stored about our user base, we try to come up with our vector search, right? Here we have, you probably heard about various kind of vector database, starting with FAISS. It's like Facebook Artificial Intelligence Vector DB, obviously before the name Meta came into play. And there is various other popular vector DB that can be used, right? And once we have the vector DB that generated from the enterprise data, we try to have a retrieval applications that will help to understand, based on the context of the query that our user have been asked, how to get that exact responses from the resultant database search, and able to go into our API gateway, which will help us to make the result as human sounded as possible, right? And exactly here, the all the LLM models you can use. And this is, as I mentioned, it's agnostic of what foundational model you want to use. You can use open source models such as Llama. You can use Amazon Bedrock and all the going back to Google, you can use Gemini, or if you are using Azure, obviously you can use OpenAI, right? And not necessarily that you are bound to use any one of this LLM. You can perform your own fine tuning on top of this foundational model that will help you to allow to create multiple type of agent to solve the task. And as Avinav mentioned in the beginning, I'm keeping this for hold. We're going to talk about the Google Firebase Studio, and we're going to talk about how this kind of workflow builder is making the end-to-end AI application development developers' life as seamless as they can. Okay, so now let's switching gear a little bit, right? Here to give you certain context, like we have built up the paradigm of agentic AI. We talked about the use cases. Now let's take a look. Is it really will help you to break through your career, right? Because each and everyone here today have a different journey, right? But if you are trying to get into a more hands-on application where you can directly be a part of this evolution in any industry, this is the time. And that's the reason we're going to give you a quick snapshot from various kind of job description that is visible nowadays, right? No matter it's an entry level software engineering, no matter it's a staff, or no matter it's a principal software engineering role, as you can see, generative AI is becoming a much more core competency is required by the industry standard, right? And as you can imagine, Avinav has introduced the paradigm of IK, and IK has a strong community, right? Both alumni and instructor, and they have that scope to gather a lot of testimonial. And as you can see, given all these testimonials, and if you can look at the right-hand side, this is a way the Project Up course have been built up. So as a participants, right, what you're going to be learning is going to be very core competency that the industry and the hiring managers are looking for, right? You are not only getting a degree, obviously you're going to have a real world portfolio. You're going to be learning project oriented implementation of agentic AI in the Project Up course, and you're going to be performing multiple open source project, and that will help you to showcase your profile, right? And that will obviously giving you a head start compared with when you're going to be going through like the application phase and going through the interview phase. Awesome. So now we came to the meat of the discussion that I know you all have joined, right? So how agentic AI works. Before I jump into the our Google Colab workspace, I just want to give you a 20,000 foot view, right? So it would be easier for you to follow through the notebook. So as I mentioned, uh, all our application started with obtaining the user query. And from there onwards, we're going to be building various kind of tools, right? And these tools is going to be our, each and every tool is around building agentic AI, right? And this agentic AI tool will be helping us to communicate with various kind of data sources, as I have shown you, and it will be able to reason and able to act on that reason, right? As you have mentioned, seen in one of the picture earlier, there is a reasoning and action loop, and that's exactly here, choosing the right tool, executing the tool, observe the response of the tool. Because whenever you're going to be doing this demo, you're going to be seeing that a lot of the time there might be some erroneous output, right? And that's where the notion of able to reason and then again execute to get the right result until our condition is met is the crux of our agentic reasoning loop. I will stop here and then get into our demo, but just want to make sure as we're going to be going through for today's demo, we're going to be mainly focusing on an e-commerce system. But nevertheless, you can apply this agentic AI example irrespective of any industry you are part of, right? Before we start the demo, you're going to be seeing that I'm going to be dropping some CSV file in our Google Colab workspace. But that's the way I'm trying to make sure you can follow through that this framework of agentic AI is flexible, no matter what industry you are a part of, may it be e-commerce or may it be healthcare. Okay, so let's directly jump into our Google Colab workspace. But before we start, again, keeping finger crossed, uh, real world demo always, give us a little bit of hiccup, but hopefully I have tried out before the class. So I'm keeping finger crossed that, things will go as smooth as possible. As you can see in my cursor, I'm just going to be dropping off these two files, right? And they are getting uploaded here. And these are the two files. Obviously, we're going to be looking into the, before we jump into the development, in any data science and machine learning project, we do various EDA or exploratory data analysis. We're going to be also performing those tasks so that you're going to be have a close understanding what is the underlying data looks like in this products.csv and the reviews.csv. And keep a eye over here, right? Because for me, next thing is going to be, I'm going to be try to run all so that this notebook will keep executing as we move forward, so the result would be prepared when you go to the cell, right? So it would be easier for me to walk you through the process without taking too much time of the execution, right? Okay, so let's start with, so what is the problem statement? As I was already kind of mentioning earlier, this demo would be a part of the e-commerce vertical AI agent. So we are trying to create a demo with an intelligent e-commerce platform agentic AI framework, which will help user to make informed shopping decision by analyzing product data and also able to gather some sentiment, right, from previous user who had a verified review, right? So the solution, as I mentioned, is going to be personalized product recommendation engine. It will do some comparison, right? Brand, price, and then it will go into the review data and try to summarize the review and also able to add or enrich each and every product along with the review we have seen from our previous verified user. Now, what is the core objectives of this agentic AI output, right? We want to, as I mentioned, the first step, obviously in this demo, we are just going to be using textual communication, but it can be enhanced into a multimodal communication, may it be voice, email, so on and so forth, right? And first thing first, we have to understand the intent, right? And that's where the context awareness comes into play. As I mentioned, there can be multiple source of integration, right? Right now, for this example, we are only using products and reviews. And however, in your use case, you can have multiple other data sources, right? And finally, we want this solution to be a real-time application where we can help our customer need. So now, given these core objectives, our milestone is to build two different agents here, right? So the reason we are starting with the example more than one agent, so it can give you a better understanding that the number of the agent is not what is important, anything more than one. how we can orchestrate them, right? We have to make sure these two agent is working with each other to able to get to the task that they are supposed to do, right? And that's where the synchronous application of both agent is very important. As I go into the demo, I will try to kind of break down, what are the each and every step we are doing. As many of you have used Python and other Java or Scala, before jumping into it, we're going to be installing various different libraries. You guys probably heard about LangChain, LangChain OpenAI. And for today's multi-agentic AI framework, we're going to be using CrewAI that will help us to achieve the specific orchestration between multiple agents. As we move forward, first thing first, we have to import all the libraries, right? So libraries, as you can imagine, we're going to be using various LLM-based communication. So we're going to be using LangChain that will help us to perform a structured prompt engineering. Prompt engineering itself, it's a beast. So no matter how much I want to spend time, we're not going to be able to catch up. But apart from the prompt engineering, we have to use that underlying LLM, right? So we have to create various context and various notion of how these LLMs are getting invoked. Finally, we're going to be also using some SQLite 3. You can think about there are various kind of database simulation you can do in a Python environment. By using the underlying CSV data, we can create a database that can be queryable, right? So if you recall, when I initiate this notebook, I have only plugged in this to CSV file, right? And within this notebook, we have able to generate the database. And based on that database, we have able to perform all this agentic AI query, right? So that's pretty much, all the like steps of import and configuration. And here we are seeing the add open AI API keys. So as you can see, obviously for the safety, you should always keep your open AI, or no matter whichever API key you're using, making sure it's not clear text, right? So use a unique API key for every team member, and follow all these the best practices that's been used for keeping API keys safe. And then here we're going to be looking into how we are building this our first agent, right? I'm not going to spend too much time over here because, as you have seen, I have already integrated the two CSV file in this ecosystem so that we can execute this notebook. As I promised, before jumping into this agentic AI definition or how we build, let's look at the data itself, right? And as you can imagine, any product database will start with a unique product ID, and cost may be dollar or any other currency based on which country this e-commerce workspace is. It has certain categories, and obviously the name of those certain items, obviously human readable name, what brand they are from, what is the retail price, and obviously you can imagine the cost and the price, right? It helps us to make sure what is our profit level and what kind of domain or kind of structure there. It's a woman product, main product, office product, or home improvement product, and each and every item have its own SKU. And obviously there is various other metadata you can think about, like a distribution center ID, store location, so on and so forth. The most interesting thing is the reviews, right? As you can see, the review itself will help you to understand for a certain product ID and so on and so forth, what kind of review we are getting, right? Along with that, we are seeing the date of the review, because as you can imagine, over time, a quality of a product can getting better, or for certain reason, users are not liking it, right? So looking at this date or the recency and the clear text review always help us to make sure, given a certain user query, how should we recommend them and how should we enrich that recommendation with users review. Now, as we have taken a look in the data, and here you can think about the exploratory data analysis. I'm not spending too much time. There is around 2,000 product, as you can see. Along with that, there is some correlation heat map. As you have seen previously, some features might not be a numerical feature. So that's why sometimes you can see that distribution center might not have a feasible heat map. So that kind of help you to understand what kind of data type we are using. We can also see over here. Finally, if you recall, we have walked through this a high level infrastructure design, how we are using this agentic AI framework. Now, as I mentioned, at the end of the day, we have to first create our LLM model, right? So this LLM model is going to be our crux of the agentic AI application. So now, once we have it ready, as I mentioned, prompt engineering is something which would be our heartbeat of this application, right? So let's take a look how this uh, prompt engineering is working. So this is a quick high level example how we are creating a persona, right? We have to first, as a part of the prompt engineering, we are setting up a LLM with certain predefined context. And here this context is that you are an assistant, skilled employee for recommending products, and we are also giving them some guideline, right? What they follow, what guideline they should follow when they are responding to a user's query. Now, as I mentioned, this application has two high-level agents. One agent is a pandas data frame agent, right? As you remember, when I start working on this problem, I have shown that how we are reading that CSV file. We are reading it as a part of a pandas data frame. And here there is an example by using the pandas agent. Can you recommend me some affordable wireless headphone? And it is giving the response of each and every item, what brand they belong to, and they are also looking at the reviews provided by other users and able to summarize the review, right? And that's what is the crux of the application. Now, the second building the second agent require a little bit of nuance, because here we're going to show you how the reviews are getting execute, right? And as I mentioned earlier, we are creating our review database given the CSV file. And as all of you has certain bit of experience of using SQL or structured query language, given the database is created, we are putting the data from the CSV file into this database itself. And once the database is up and running, we're going to be able to create our second agent. And this agent will help us to take the input from a user, create that prompt template, and based on the template, it's going to be able to execute the search of the review, right? And now you can see this end-to-end example. The user input is suggest top-rated accessories for man. And as you can see, this is the step-by-step, right? Initially, as soon as the agent is getting the query, it's invoking the database and is trying to understand what is the metadata, right? It's looking at the sample file. And based on that, it's able to build up the query, that the query is top rated accessories for man, right? So here the notion of reasoning comes into play. What are the accessories stand for, right? And it's, as you can see, it's exactly able to get the definition of accessories from sunglass, winter sale, gloves, pull on hat. And that's what the power of the generic LLM models comes into the play. And finally, when the chain has been finished, it has been able to respond back with all these top rated accessories from men. And as you can see in the question, they also want to have the rating, right? So this agentic AI framework is not only able to respond to the query, but also able to pull the average review have been provided. Interesting enough, as you can see, they have been sorted in order, right? So now let's hop on to for the respect of time, I would have loved to spend more time, but let's hop into the overall framework as we have built step by step, right? So as I mentioned, there are two agents you are building here. One is the pandas agent and another is the review agent. And we are creating a kind of a class because, as you know, Python can be used as both object oriented, and previously we are showing the executable approach. But here, to make this application much more scalable and deployable, we have created this class where we have defined these two agents. One agent is the pandas agent, another agent is the review recommendation agent. And once this agent has been defined, this is exactly what we have seen earlier. We are defining the questions, when, and the reasoning step by step. When the question is coming, what kind of thought that the agent need to be put in place before they create the action. And if the action is not showing the result that we want, we have to continue in this loop of having the reasoning in place and perform the next action to generate our final result. So now here is the example of how we are executing the task. So here the context of the CrewAI coming into play, right? We are trying to orchestrate between two different agents that will help us to create the end-to-end task. And as you can see, this is this interesting log, right, that we have walked through earlier. And as I mentioned, a lot of the time, this agentic AI tool might face some kind of exception, right? But the difference with a microservice architecture, this agentic AI framework, being intelligent enough, it's going to be able to understand what's going wrong, and based on the thought process that has been given to it, it will able to find out how to fix the certain error that is getting. And as you can see, as we go through this communication between two agents, it has able to finally identify the right way to build a query and write database to query to get their final response, right? So obviously it will take time for me to go through the blog, but as you can see, once the Crew AI result has been run, you're going to be seeing the result of find affordable wireless headphone with good battery life. It's able to identify the name of the brand, the model name, and also able to work on that example that what is the battery life, right? 30 hours, 40 hours, along with the price statistics, right? So that's what the notion of affordability is. So now overall, we try to give a high level walkthrough, but as I can perfectly understand, there will be a lot of questions. And obviously, would love to have you guys in this session of Project Up so you can get your hands dirty as you move. Okay. I know I'm not going to keep you guys longer than the time has been allotted in your calendar. So what are you going to be learning in Project Up, right? Each and every tools that you have seen in the demo, starting from Pandas, LangChain, Hugging Face to download all the pre-trained model, and our compressed large language model. Those are open source, such as MetaLlama. Obviously, you're going to be learning PyTorch. That's one of the engine of our not only training the LLM, but fine tuning and building the RAG. So you can think about in this Project Up course, the way the course has been designed before, you jump into the fire, you're going to be able to know each and every tools that you need to work through that process. And finally, this is an extra addition for today's class, because very recently you have probably heard a new buzzword in the agentic AI ecosystem, right? And where it's coming in, I believe at the end of the day, all of us has experienced certain kind of a ID, right? And that's exactly where Google realized it's a very good time to, create a market demand and have a full stack AI app development environment. But before going into the Firebase Studio, I want to let you know that there is a lot of other tools that also been available in the industry, right? If you recall, in one of the slides before, I didn't spend too much time on no code, low code, or for hardcore coders, right? So there is Bolt, as you can see, can be used for no code powerhouse. You probably already heard the term called vibe coding. And there are other tools such as Replit or Cursor that can be used for individuals who want to get their hands dirty, right? And exactly where Google has introduced Firebase Studio. I believe, as all of you are a part of the tech ecosystem, you have heard about Firebase, right? So Firebase is a Google offering where you can have multiple data storage. No, neither it can be both online and offline serving requirement. It has authentication module, and finally it allow you to deploy any kind of services, right? And obviously it has various analytics tool, starting from crash, starting from IP address where it's getting accessible. So on all in all, by using Firebase Studio, you can use Google Gemini LLM to build a Gen AI agentic framework based end-to-end app development environment, right? So that's where the power of this Firebase Studio, if you have heard in the last week, just want to give you a sneak peek. Finally, before I give this flow of the conversation back to Avinav, I just want to let you know, you probably have gotten this enrollment interest form, and feel free to take a time to go ahead and fill it up if you are interested in any one of the Project Up sessions that been offered by IK.